Boris Johnson accommodates party critics but remains on a confrontational course with Brussels. Does he want to wrest concessions from the EU in the Brexit free trade talks? Or is he deliberately planning a hard break with the EU and rapprochement with the USA? Boris Johnson is not a politician who shuns risk. The fact that he does not follow clear principles makes him unpredictable, and he enjoys leaving his opponents in the dark. A year ago, he reached a last-minute agreement with the EU partners on a Brexit agreement. Johnson downplayed the fact that this provided for Northern Ireland to remain in the EU internal market, and with it certain goods controls for the British Isles. Now the Prime Minister has brought a market law into Parliament that threatens to break the recently sealed Brexit treaty on 2 counts. Meanwhile, he made the adventurous accusation that Brussels want to block British food deliveries to Northern Ireland, which is complete nonsense and fake news, by the way. And domestically, the openly propagated breach of international law has triggered contradiction far into the ranks of his conservatives, who traditionally seek themselves as guardians of law and order. Johnson has now tried to contain the party rebellion. Ahead of next week's groundbreaking lower house debates, he tabled an amendment giving Parliament the right to block a specific breach of the Brexit treaty. But whether this will calm the minds in the House of Lords is questionable. In addition, the debate in Westminster seems pretty self-centered. From an EU perspective, whether the British Parliament or the government breaks the Brexit treaty is of secondary importance. Brussels has ultimately asked London to withdraw the controversial passages of the law and will probably have to take the first steps to settle disputes within the framework of the Brexit treaty in early October in order to remain credible. So what is Johnson aiming for with his targeted escalation? It is conceivable that Johnson still wants a free trade agreement and is putting the EU under pressure. It is reported from EU circles that despite the dispute over the Brexit treaty, the free trade agreements will not be cancelled on their own initiative. No, the EU is fulfilling what they promised in the withdrawal agreement, and they will negotiate until it's over. Johnson also asserts that he is aiming for a deal. Of course, that doesn't mean anything. But for him, there are not only economic but also political reasons for a free trade agreement. For example, an unregulated end of the Brexit transition period at the beginning of 2021 could fuel Scottish independence efforts and make efforts to establish a global network of free trade agreements more difficult. In the USA, Congressman and Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden are already warning London against breaking the Brexit treaty, endangering peace in Northern Ireland. And that's what the Northern Ireland Protocol is for, to keep the Good Friday Agreement intact, to keep peace in Northern Ireland. And that is the highest priority for the EU in case of Northern Ireland. Under these circumstances, a free trade agreement with the USA would not be an option for them. Don't forget how many people in the USA regard themselves as being descendants from Irish. And last but not least, Johnson has also a power political interest in delivering a deal on his election promise. In the corona crisis, the government leaves a less than competent impression. A chaotic Brexit threatened to consolidate this picture. Robert Shrimsley, the chief political commentator for the Financial Times, also argues that a no-deal Brexit would not end the struggle for relations with Brussels, but would rather extend it well beyond 2021, with old options such as EU membership in the end. The internal market would come up again. According to Shrimsley, Johnson therefore absolutely needs a free trade agreement in order to finally clarify the Brexit question. And because many Johnson voters at the end of 2019 did not vote for the most radical possible cut with the EU, but instead for an end to the grueling Brexit turmoil. Nevertheless, it is conceivable that Johnson is aiming for a no-deal Brexit, on the other hand, and blames the EU for this. The renowned expert and former British ambassador in Brussels, Ivan Rogers, advocates this thesis in an interview. With the market law, the government set in motion a no-deal spiral from which both sides could hardly find their way out. He doesn't believe that Johnson has always wanted a no-deal Brexit, says Rogers. But now he believes him in the camp of his chief advisor Dominic Cummings, who is pleading within the government for a radical break with Brussels. According to Rogers, there are increasing conservative voices who believe that the EU will only be ready to sign a sensible free trade agreement with London after a no-deal Brexit. They are really wrong about that, but okay. And in addition, Cummings is relying on a new edition of the Brexit culture war from last year, says the government critic and Brexit opponent Rogers. He's looking to confront the British House of Lords and the judiciary and thinks that a meagre free trade agreement can be sold less well than a no deal for which the EU is to blame. Cummings has a revolutionary streak, wants to break up old state and economic structures in Great Britain, and is apparently planning to create a new tech industry with subsidies, regardless of the economic principles of the Conservatives and Brussels rules on state aid. Rogers believes that Johnson, in tow from Cummings, with a mid-Atlantic Brexit, not only wants to expand his own power, but also wants to bring the country closer strategically to the USA. Great Britain has the choice of remaining European and orientating itself toward Brussels rules, or stepping into the American orbit with rules from Washington, says Rogers. Ironically, both options offer little national control and sovereignty. Ultimately, it is conceivable that Johnson is still undecided whether to bet on a deal or a no-deal Brexit. The main factor is the course of the free trade talks with the EU, which may continue beyond the official deadline of late October. Rogers believes Johnson might even try to keep all options open until the US presidential election in November. A choice of Biden would speak in favor for a free trade agreement with the EU, as Biden would renew ties with Berlin and Paris and defend Dublin's interests in Northern Ireland. But if Trump wins, Johnson could switch to a non-deal with Brussels and quickly conclude a trade agreement with Washington. Although Trump is not the only one with a say, it depends what happens in the Congress as well. A re-election of Trump and a no-deal Brexit threatens a deep rift through the Western world, says Rogers. I wonder whether this geostrategic dimension is adequately taken into account in the EU capitals, says Rogers. And if you now want to know more about European politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in my next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!